Well, what is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Today on the table in front of us, we have something new from the folks at Civivi. This, and it's crooked, is the Keen Nadder. Now, that is a name, but when I first saw pictures of this is one of their 2021 releases, I absolutely fell in love with the blade shape, and then when I got my hands on one, I completely fell in love with the knife. Now, Civivi has long, at this point, been making excellent knives. That is not a question. They make great knives. They are comfortable, easy to use, good materials, on and on and on. But last year, they decided to elevate themselves a little bit. We Knife, of course, who makes Civivi, brought forth the Sencut brand as their new sort of budget stuff and elevated Civivi up into the $70 to $100 range. And my initial response was, why? But if this is an indication of where they're going to go, I am 100% behind it. The Keen Nadder here is everything I like in a knife. It really is. It has a comfortable handle. It's lean, but very, very comfortable. In fact, it's basically just a square. The blade itself is a compound, hollow ground. It's compound grind. It's hollow ground tanto. It is N690, which is a really good steel. It has heft to it. It is a nice thick chunk of N690. The action, oh God. The action on this knife is as good as some of my $300, $400, and $500 knives. There's three forms of deployment. I know how to speak, watch me go. There is a fuller, which means you can spidey flick it. There are thumb studs, which work every time. And then, of course, on the back, there's a very, very small, well-done flipper, which also never fails. This thing is phenomenal. Now, I know that a compound grind tanto is not for everyone, but given my collection, and you guys have seen much of it, you should know that this thing just spoke to me immediately in pictures, and I am happy to report that in hand, it is everything that I wanted it to be. It is G10 on steel liners. It is a liner lock, as you can see, and even the light's not great. It lock up about 30%. No blade rock, no wiggle, no nothing. It is fantastic. The grind is perfect. It is totally even on both sides. It's got this wonderful dark stonewash on the blade. The compound grind is done really well right here through the center, and it's not a very severe recurve, as you can see it a little bit. But this thing is such a cutter. Oh man, it is so good. Now there is a space up front, sort of a choil. I can get my finger on it, and I have big fingers, but you're going to want to be careful. You are up against the blade a little bit if your fingers are as big as mine, but I have not had reason to use it. But I'll tell you something, for boxes and rope and other materials that I've cut, this thing has been absolutely stellar. It really has been. The basic design is pretty straightforward, very Civivi, if you will. It has a reasonably plain handle with the edges chamfered and knocked down, so they're milled a little bit so it's comfortable. It is a G10 backspacer. It has a lanyard spot back here, but that does not interfere with the flow of the knife. The pocket clip is sort of straightforward Civivi goodness, as you can see. It is nice and deep carry with flush-mounted screws, so it doesn't get in the way. It is a steel stamped clip with plenty of ramp, good spring, and lots of room for big pants, which is very nice. It has no jimping on the handle, although there is jimping on the lock bar, which is in a really nice spot. And there's jimping on the back of the blade right here, right where my big old thumbs, and I imagine yours too, will want to land. I love this thing. I have a lot of Civivi knives. I've had more. I mean, really, here, let's get those up where you can see them. All of these are wonderful, but this one feels different, and I'm not 100% sure why. Part of it is how thick the blade stock is. Part of it's just the overall complete fit and finish. And this is one from last year. It's an excellent pocket knife. Really good cutter and slicer. But this thing is something special. Most of these that I've showed you are in 9CR18 MOV, or as in this case, very lovely Damascus. A couple of my Civivis are actually off with Alex Knives and Such, which is a great channel. You should check that out. But this thing, look, I have some very expensive knives, and I have to tell you that this knife feels as good as those very expensive knives, and yet this thing is about, I think it's 90 bucks, something like that, $79. It still qualifies as a budget blade, and yet it is superb. So let's go ahead and measure it out. You get 1, 2, 3 1/4 inches of cutting on 3.5 inches of N690 steel. The grip area from behind the flipper tab is 1, 2, 3, right at 3 3/4, coming up on 4 inches. It is very comfortable. At first, I thought maybe the lean handle would cause hot spots or give me a bit of a hassle when I'm working with it, but none of that has happened. This thing has been an excellent worker, and it's gorgeous to boot. The overall knife, from end to end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 1/8, just over 8 inches long. God, that action is so good. I know that there are people out there that don't enjoy when we refer to knives as fidget toys. You know, it's a tool, it's not a fidget toy, but I'll tell you something. If they can manage to give you both a completely amazing working tool that is also fun to fidget with, that is a total win in my book. And this thing is all of that. The closed length, 1, 2, 3, 4 3/4. Look, I enjoy Civivi knives. I have a few. I've had many over the last few years. But this, look, I don't know how to get this across on camera. This feels like something else entirely. It really does. It looks like a Civivi. I mean, except for the blade, which looks very much like a Wee knife. And it should. I don't know, they've dialed in the detent. They've dialed in the way that it runs around on the bearings. They've dialed in the way they do their grinds. The G10 and steel liners, which are, by the way, the steel liners are rounded, so there's no sharp edges at all. Everything is chamfered. This is really good. Let's do some size comparisons. Here it is against the Bug Out, which is, you know, a small knife that many people seem to have held. And as you can see, the Keen Nadder is bigger than the Bug Out, but it's not an enormous knife. It is bigger enough. Is that a phrase? We're going to go with it anyway. That while the Bug Out is a little small for my hand, the Keen Nadder is absolutely not. Let's compare it against something a little bigger. Here it is against the Rat Model 1. This one, of course, is a Hilltop Knives and Gear modified version. And as you can see, the Rat 1 is a little bigger. Not much, but a little. What else do we have on the table that's fun? Here it is against the Aster. These knives are very similar in overall length, right? The Spartan Aster here is a marvelous knife. One of my favorites from this year. It's really good. It's going to stay that way too. But this is $135. Now, for $135, you get CTS XHP steel. I can speak, watch me go. But I'll tell you, for under $100, N690 and this much, look at the action on this thing is just, and look, it was like this the minute I took it out of the box. I haven't taken this apart, cleaned it, lubed it, done anything to it. It's just smooth. I love this thing. So I mentioned it's a pretty thick piece of N690. Now that just may be the way it feels. Let's go ahead and measure it out. Back here at the thickest spot, it is just about, okay, so 3.7 millimeters, under 4 millimeters, but still nice and thick. The handle itself is 12 millimeters, or just under a ½ inch, as you can see. It makes for a very comfortable kit. I dropped a knife, but not this one. It makes for a very comfortable carry. The carry profile is very lean, right? We're talking about just over 1 inch, and with the flipper tab here, we're talking about 1 1/4 inches. It is a very, very lean knife in the pocket, right? So it's easy to carry. And with this nice deep carry clip, man, it is just a superb. I'm going to say carry one more time, carry. Let's weigh it. Come on, scale. There we go. I fear that my reliable old scale here is starting to die. This is heavier than, oh, let's see, 3.9 ounces for 3.5 inches of N690. That's not bad. I think that it's interesting. It's not bad. Not bad. I said this knife feels kind of heavy in hand, and I think what I mean, now that I've weighed it, is that in comparison to other Civivis, which just kind of feel budgety, wonderful, but budgety, this feels like a much more substantial knife. It is, yeah, I know I'm trying to sell it to you. Look, you either love something like this with this blade shape, right, a compound recurved tanto, I get it, or you don't. But if you do, you're going to want to check one of these out for sure. And that's really my final analysis. Civivi has decided, they said so last year, and they released some stuff, to up their game in some subtle ways to put themselves in the middle place between a Wee knife and the new Sencut line. This is all of that evidence in one place. It is a more complex blade grind. Everything is just a little better put together. The fit and finish is astounding. And it is, there's a little lefty love, right? There's a single hole back here, which means you can flip the clip and go left-handed. Now, you can't change where the lock bar is. I get that. But that's a really nice feature, and most Civivis do that. I just wanted to point out that it was there. It is a clean design. The blade itself has no markings, which to me has always been a sign of higher-end knives. Budget knives often have a lot of stuff stamped on them, written on them, lasered into them. Higher-end knives tend not to. Maybe a single logo, but maybe nothing, and this has nothing. It is a super clean design. So if you're interested in what Civivi is doing, if they have done right by you in the past, and I frankly cannot imagine that they have not, but you're a little upset that the new stuff is a little more expensive, you are absolutely getting your money's worth as far as I'm concerned. They have improved, like I said, just little tiny things across this entire knife. And it's not just this knife. I have a riffle here, which is going to get a full review. This is lighter in hand than the Keen Nadder, but it is the same stuff. It is just perfectly executed. Review of this is coming. So there we go. This is the Civivi Keen Nadder. It is a fantastic pocket knife. It is interesting. It is easy to carry. It is well made. It is comfortable in hand. If you want one, go get one. I don't wildly recommend knives very often, but I'm going to recommend this thing. I hope you have enjoyed this look at the Keen Nadder. I am super glad to have one. Thank you so much for watching today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments. I'd love it if you'd subscribe on the way out. Helps the channel. Don't forget to hit that like button. We'll see you next time.